So I was in my office earlier and I was looking through some documents, and I realized I came across some paperwork that involved on the job random drug tests. So they call me in the office, and we all get in a van and we go to this like a clinic, and everybody gives the urine sample. And it was 3 or 4 days before this test that I was using cannabis. So they caught me because when I signed up for the job, I I signed a contract, and it was about my staying drug free, even in my free time. So I can't use drugs even though I'm not working, which seems stupid, right, at the time, because some people use certain kinds of drugs that because of certain conditions that they may have. They might have like post-traumatic stress disorder, or they might have uh, a bad something wrong with their body and they're in pain a lot. So they need to take this as a medication. And unfortunately for me, I was introduced to it as a youngster, and I enjoyed using it, imbibing in it, and it became it parts of my own life. Growing up as a teen, there was times when it was around, other people had it and they were smoking it, so they would share what they had with me. Most of the time I wasn't buying it. It was given to me just as a because I was at a party. So as I get older, I'm like, I still once in a while, even though when I was working at this company, and I'm embarrassed to say this, right? So if any of you out there work for your employer requires you to have certain states of mind while on the job. So they have to be really cautious. They have to be alert to what's going on around them. They have to be really quick on their feet, make decisions fast, make the right decisions, and not screw up if there's a situation that involves safety, or a situation that could be really hazardous. If something went wrong and someone didn't do what they're supposed to do and did it a different way, it would cost a lot of money, and people get injured, they get hurt, and they have to go to the hospital, or they die too. People, while I worked at this company, someone died on the job because they got electrocuted because it wasn't properly set up, or they didn't know it was off or something, how it happened. But it was human error, right? Human caused error. So in that respect, a company will put together their charter, and one of the things that they've agreed upon and they have within their own procedures for how they run their company, everything's a procedure that's written down, that's documented for exactly how the company's run, step by step. Everybody's position in the company, what they do as an employee, and you sign on and you say, yeah, I'll not use smoke cannabis on my own free time. And I signed a document basically that said that, right, to them. So when I got caught, it was embarrassing, and I was like, oh shoot, what's going to happen next? All right. So they sent me, I got one chance, and I was still an employee. I worked in the office most of the time. I wasn't in the factory, right? And almost every time I've ever used and smoked cannabis, I've never driven a car. I've always had time where it was a couple of days after I used it, I would operate a motor vehicle. So if I use it, I'm careful that I'm not going to have to like drive anywhere or travel anywhere or leave my home. If I can just stay home and not leave my home, I'm fine. Until the initial effects of the plant, of the intoxication effects of the plant diminish over a several day period. Just it'll go out of you'll flush it from your body. And the course that I went to was it was approved by the Department of Transportation, because the Department of Transportation, they're the ones that set aside these guidelines for businesses that have anything involving safety. There's standards and guidelines. So because they caught me with the THC in my body, in the workplace, I wasn't using it while I was working. Okay, the day I was working, I did not use it. I promise you that, right? I wasn't intentionally trying to be unsafe on the workplace or be a hazard or be, because your other coworkers, if you're not safe and you're working with them, they won't like you. They're like, you're putting me in harm's way because you're a hazard now. So if something happens and you do something dumb on the job and you make a mistake and it costs the company a lot of money, because now they have to pay more insurance, right, on their labor and industries insurance. Because there was anything at work is any kind of safety. There's a hazard or there's an incident involves someone's health or their body. It's like very, very, very expensive. Costs a lot of money when someone's injured on the job. It's very, very expensive for the employer. So I totally understand that. I agree. I agree with that, and I suffered because of that. It was a mistake I made. If I could apologize, if somebody out there is offended by that, I understand. And or they have children that they would never want their children to ever, ever, ever try anything that had cannabis in it. These parents are like super cautious and afraid of their children in any way, shape, or form getting cannabis, getting THC in their little bodies. Because they might become like an addict. They'll think, oh, my kid will, and then they'll start using, taking pills and then using heroin. And then, they'll always say it's this, oh, because this one's that way. Maybe other ones are too good too. And it's like candy, going in a candy store. So, but people that are uneducated, youngsters, in here, the taxpayer is helping pay for their foster parenting, right? If this is a foster parent and they're being paid by the state to take care of these kids, their foster kids, and the kids that are foster kidding, they use marijuana or they find marijuana. These are minors, right? And the foster parents are supposed to be taking care of these minors because they're getting money, they're getting paid from their local community. Everybody in the community is supporting the foster parents to take care of these teenagers, and they're getting high. They're finding marijuana. It's getting passed around among them. They're using it. Minors. So, and I understand why you're pissed off, why you're mad at people that are in any way, shape, or form you have used cannabis or ever tried it or promote it in any way. I mean, I say if you had an injury in your past and your doctor tells you to take medication for that injury to help you through it, if it's tinnitus, if it's like an ache in a certain part of your body, it won't go away and it always aches. So you take something to help you feel better, to relieve your the pain in that part of your body, or you really had something really, really, really traumatic happen to you that was really harsh and scary, that was really difficult for you to live through emotionally. It just tore you to pieces, right? And affected you deeply enough to just cause heavy amounts of anxiety and worry and concern and foreboding and thinking about the dread of the future is coming. It's coming. And then they die. The person that you love, they die, and then they're not there anymore. And they were this big part of your life while you're, for 30 years. So, and so you're like taking care of this person at home, and then you're trying to work too at the same time. So it got difficult for me. Someone that's bedbound. I don't know if any of you out there have or have ever done yourself taking care of a person that's bound in a bed. They can't get out of the bed. But they can clean themselves. And then it only was up until the last week that I was doing that all for her, and so it was a stressful time for me. And I'm working at this job, and I'm expecting to have all of my report complete at the meetings. And I'm explaining everybody what I've been doing in my time, in that period of time, and they're going over and evaluating me, and everybody's like very critical of how I'm explaining myself, because when I say something during the meeting, someone immediately says, "I didn't understand what you said. Could you say that again? You weren't clear enough to me." And then I have to like reword what I just said and re-explain it. And then, someone that has had a lot of pets, right? So I had 2 dogs, and I had like 3 or 4 cats in my house. And it was really dark early in the morning, and I was going to work, and I went out my back door. I usually go out the front door, but this time I went out my back door, and I stepped in a pile of dog shit. So I had squished onto my bottom of my foot, my shoe, a pancake of fresh dog shit. And I got in my car and I went to work. I walked in the door. I went upstairs. I sat down at my desk in my office. And immediately I smell this horrible smell of like, oh, no. So I got my shoe, took it off, and I went into the bathroom, right? I went into the bathroom and I took my shoe off, and I washed the bottom of my shoe off in the sink at work to get rid of the dog shit on the bottom of my foot. Because I didn't know it was dark, and I was walking. I usually go out the front door, and I stepped in the dog shit, and I got to work. So I had a big, huge clump of dog shit on the bottom of my foot when I get to my job. And I knew somebody was going to complain too, right? Because there's like people that I've worked with that they just complain about the slightest thing that you do wrong or they don't like about you. They go to your boss and they complain to your boss about you. They don't come to you and they don't face to face say, "Hey, what? You got your radio on too much, or you're not. How come?" It was more for me. It was more like, "How come you're late every day, right? How come you're not here right exactly at 8:00 or 7:45, right? And be ready for work and start work right on the clock and be there, not come in late every day." So my coworkers didn't like me because of that. But after I was tested positive on a random urine test, right? So they just call me in the office, right? And they come in, they say, "Come on, we're going." And everybody gets in a van, and we go have our piss tested. And it comes back, it goes to a doctor, and then it goes to the human resources manager at the company, what the results of the tests were. So I get called up, and after the test, I just pretended like I don't know what's going to happen. I knew I was kind of, I felt, oh no, I have to go through this. I don't know if maybe I'm going to lose my job. And I was like, well, I'll lose my job, whatever, I'll deal with it. So I went to the meeting, and the human resources manager was there, and then my boss was there. And my boss was like looking at me like I was like, "Oh, you fool, you should be ashamed of yourself, I'm embarrassed for you, you've really he was disappointed, he thought maybe he didn't think I would be someone that would use a cannabis product, marijuana, maybe he thought I was clean the whole time, and everybody, yeah, until they test you, of course, yeah. But in my whole time working at this company, and they had a quite an extensive factory with different processes, things going on with a lot of heavy equipment and materials, sensitive machinery, and areas where it was really noisy, or where there was something that was spraying in the atmosphere, like welding, sparks from welding and that. So, and paint fumes from a big painting area where they were prepping paint. And through my whole career there, all of the time that I worked there, all that time that I spent working there, never one time. Well, actually,